All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Rebel Roundup, our daily live stream where we bring you the news of the day, completely unscripted and sometimes painfully live. It's Thursday, July the 10th. I am your host, Tamara Ugolini, and I'm joined today by my co-host and colleague and friend, Alexa Lavoie out of Quebec. Alexa, how are you doing over there?
I'm pretty good, and you?
Good, doing well, thank you. Enjoying this summer weather that we're having. Nice warm spurt after a couple days of it being cold. We, as always, have a ton of topics to bring you today. We'll be chatting about foreigners staring at women and children in the pool, some violent far left protester happenings, and an update with a special guest today. I think they're joining about 1:30, and we might get some other headlines such as Trump defending women's sports. And here in Canada, we're defending women in the pools. So we'll showcase and highlight some of Alexa's exclusive independent reporting out in the field, in the wild, as we like to say. First and foremost, though, we have an update right off the top from the Independent Press Gallery that has condemned the Montreal police's treatment of you, Alexa, in the field over the weekend. You were threatened with arrest. You're physically obstructed from doing your job, which was reporting on and recording public demonstration in front of the Notre Dame Basilica. So I'll just highlight a couple of points from this press release. If my computer will let me zoom in closer on it, which of course it won't. But anyway, the gist of it, I already stated, that the police were trying to restrict and prohibit you from recording. And this is obviously a topic that is in the public interest and has great political significance, these gatherings. And so about the third paragraph, I just want to highlight this. Miss Lavoie was ordered to leave the area by the SVPM officers, told to stop creating an event, and threatened with arrest for obstruction while simply filming. Meanwhile, demonstrators were allowed to block her camera with signs and flags and engage in hostile behavior, completely unchallenged by law enforcement. Alexa, I think we have a clip of this report, which will be coming out later today. But the crazy part to me is that not only did you have to deal with such hostility from the actual protesters in the event that you were covering, but then you had to it was like a double whammy where the police were then being hostile and trying to further obstruct you from doing your job. What was even happening there?
And I was really surprised because at one point they say, "Oh, let them pray, let them pray." I was not there for stopping them of praying. I was there to record their prayer. And at one point, one police say, like, "I do not even understand why she's filming this." First of all, it's not you to decide what I'm filming or not. I'm doing my journalism. I'm doing this because this is a newsworthy, especially with the public prayer ban that François Legault wants to put in place. And at one point, who was obstructing me the most was the police officers. It was not even like, oh, okay, the protesters were violent, but the police were literally pulling me out of the place physically at multiple occasions. And at one point, one of the police that was the other side of the street ran to the other side to pull my backpack and to pull me out. And I was like, I was just filming on top of the car because they were filming. Obviously, they use a truck to hide themselves. So I was just trying to pull my camera on in the air for being able to film because obviously they are using signs and flags in front of my camera to obstruct my vision. And I was not doing anything. I was just close to the car, a rental car, by the way. And this was a problem. But I was not interacting with anybody. I was not provoking anybody. I was just filming and doing my job.
Well, and I just received word that the video has now been published in its entirety. So if you want to check out that full report from Alexa, what happened over the weekend between these protesters and the Montreal police, you can do that at standwithalexa.com. There will be legal fees, and there are existing legal fees mounting with the Montreal police. It looks like there will be more. And so if you want to support Alexa in her endeavors to simply be out in the streets and report and film things in public spaces that are of great public interest, you can do that at standwithalexa.com. Make sure that you check out the full report there as well to see all of the nitty gritty, what exactly is happening in the streets of Montreal. And again, like, this is a Catholic church. This isn't a mosque. This is a sign of, I would say, domination and showing to the public, we can do whatever we want with indemnity, and you can't even be here to film any of it, because the police will have our backs and they will accost you just as we, the protesters, are similarly doing. So
And by
this
the
is
way,
complete. Yeah.
Because if it's not at the cenotaph, sometimes they are going to go in front of the cenotaph. Like, if it's not the basilica, it would be the cenotaph that represent the veteran who died for our democracy, for our country. Or they would go in front of different consulates to show, again, their domination over not only Canada, but the US and Israel and the religion that is Christianism. And it really, I tried to reach out to the diocese of Montreal to ask them a couple of questions. I didn't receive any reply from them. Obviously, they would probably not comment on another religion just for avoiding any backlash or anything like that. But imagine if a lot of Christians decide to go and pray in front of a mosque. I'm really, 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 interested to know how everything would turn out and how they would portray this peaceful, like praying in front. We know that Christians have been under attack these recently and over the past few years. So, of course, like, nobody would do that because it's respectful. Point. Period.
Yeah, the disrespect and also the hypocrisy. Like, what, as you rightfully point out, what would happen if the tables were turned? And hey, maybe that's where we're at, that we need to see it play out in real time. What would the response be like, and what would happen? Mm-hmm. But I don't think that Catholics have, they don't care enough to engage in that kind of disrespectful, dominating behavior. They're just wanting to practice their religion in peace and live in harmony. They're not looking to ruffle any feathers or rile anybody up, and that, sadly, is the difference that you see there. But the reaction from the police is like a whole other issue in and of itself, and that's why there will be some legal endeavors moving forward as you continue to fight with the Montreal police, simply to uphold the ability and simply the freedom of the press, right? Why can these people are out in public? They're in the public square. This is a public interest topic, and we're going to report on it. And I think the police are not, or have not, in previous years, been able to testify to their reasoning behind telling someone like a journalist to move along, or you can't film here. They're so used to people just kowtowing, caving, saying, oh, okay, yeah, sure, no, and moving along. They're not used to having that pushback, say, no, I know my rights. I have the responsibility to bring the public this story, and I'm going to continue filming it. And they're not used to that pushback.
And I'm pretty surprised because the chief of police, his name is new. I think he's been in place since 2022, 23. I don't really recall when he got in place, but it was mainly by Mayor Valérie Plante. But his name is Fadi Daguerre. He's a Lebanese Canadian, but I'm being told that he's a Christian. So I'm really surprised that he's letting all this going forwards, knowing that how Christians have been persecuted, how Muslim, not Muslim, but like radical Islam have actually invaded some places like in the Middle East and etc. I'm really surprised to see that there is no action being taken at all. Like they are letting them doing whatever they want. They don't have any repercussion. If they hit someone, they are not going to stop them because you will see in the video, Guillaume had been attacked. His camera almost like being thrown into the ground in front of the police. The police did actually nothing again and again. So it seems like it's not seen. There is a two-tier policing and there is a double standard of how we are treating alternative media and how we are treating those protesters.
100%. And it keeps becoming more and more clear. And so before we move on from this topic, let's just throw to a quick teaser of this full report. And of course, if you want to support Alexa's work and see the full interaction, you can go to standwithalexa.com. But here's the teaser.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Hey! C'est toi?
Donc, donnez-moi une seconde. Non, ne me touchez pas. Non, vous n'avez pas le droit de me toucher. Vous n'avez pas le droit de me toucher.
Ça va juste escalader, là.
Hey! T'as pas le droit de me toucher. OK, toi, on te voit en cours.
En ce moment, je t'ordonne de circuler parce qu'en ce moment, si tu fais ça, je vais t'arrêter pour entrave.
Entrave de quoi?
Pour entrave.
J'ai pas fait mon travail de journaliste.
It's so angering to see that play out and the way that you're treated, Alexa. But thanks for your bravery and continuing to bring us this kind of footage, because I think without your work, some of these other roundtables and conference discussions on extremism in Canada, well, they wouldn't have anything to source back to. So thank you for your original independent reporting on this topic. It certainly doesn't go unnoticed by us. So we also have more independent original reporting from you, Alexa, where the community has spoken out against, I mean, you call them alleged foreigners, but I think the visuals are pretty clear. Staring at females and children at the local swimming pool. Maybe let's just play the cold open of this report, and then I'll get you to expand a little bit more on what's happening.
Did you see an increase of this new, it's not really new, but this phenomenon increasing with the fact that we receive a massive new immigrants here in Quebec and in Canada?
I wouldn't say so. I don't think there's a correlation between race and like that movement, no.
Mais je sais qu'en Europe, ça fait depuis des décennies que ça existe, ce problème-là. C'est important de dire non. Le Québec puis le Canada, c'est une culture très ouverte, mais il y a des choses qu'il faut dire non. C'est pas raciste de dire non à certaines choses. Puis moi, j'aimerais ça que les féministes, les vrais féministes, ils disent assez à ça. Tu sais, eux, ils ont un double standard où on dirait, tu sais, c'est comme, oh non, on peut pas trop chialer contre ça parce que c'est raciste.
De ne pas avoir peur de dénoncer. Je pense que les gens ont été beaucoup retenus par la peur, puis à peur de se faire traiter de raciste ou d'intolérant, mais c'est pas une question de racisme ou d'intolérance, c'est tolérance zéro pour tout le monde d'agir de la sorte avec...
Mass immigration has brought many challenges, and what I'm about to show you is one of the most concerning. Women and children no longer feel safe. Incidents of staring, groping, and inappropriate behavior have been reported multiple times right here in Montreal's public swimming pools.
Yeah, the fact that everybody gets called racist for, as that woman points out, rightfully points out, calling out inappropriate behavior is the absolute bananas, upside down world that we're living in. I think no matter across cultural race lines, if you are here in Canada and there is inappropriate behavior taking place, it needs to be called out every single time. We need to stop being fearful of these ridiculous labels that just get thrown around and tossed around as though they don't mean anything anymore. Like, these people are obviously not racist. They're just trying to protect the pool, public swimming space, so that women and girls and children can be comfortable to swim at them. This is not racism at all.
And we need to make a difference in between race and culture. It's completely different. It's not the same thing. And we are talking to a specific type of culture of voyeurism, of staring at, of groping. And there is older women who have reported to receive balls, balls in the face at the pool, because I know which kind of behavior. It's like an extension of themselves. So if the ball is actually touching a woman, it's kind of like the same kind of feeling as if you touch the woman yourself. So there is multiple incidents, and it's growing. It's not new. It's been years that some women have refused to go to that public pool. And it's not just women, it's children also. So imagine being a mother, you go to a public pool with your children, and your children is being stared at. And how they were describing me, how they are acting. Sometimes they are sitting in the grass, they are splitting to things like they are not in group. And sometimes they will go to the fence and they will grab the fence and just look inside of the fence like that and not move at all. And sometimes they are going inside of the public pool. And sometimes it's happening in the water, that they are grouping and they are like kind of doing inappropriate behavior. And sometimes it's also like invading the private space, like sitting on the towel of the woman, trying to engage with them. They cannot take a no as an answer. They will just continue again and again and again and harass. Some women have been reported with their children where they're, I don't know how you call it, like a push, like a for pushing like the baby, the stroller,
the
or
stroller.
whatever. And
stroller.
They had to scream, "No, get away from me." Imagine, like, now this park is not safe anymore. But it's not just that park, it's everywhere in all public spaces that is happening. It's just now there is a lot of complaint in one specific area, but it's happening in other provinces, in other public spaces. And you actually share, and I'm sorry for what happened to you, but I saw your testimony online, and I'm sorry, and I would love like people to know what happened.
Yeah, so this actually happened to me last year at my local beach, the Coburg Beach. And at first I was kind of second guessing myself, like, am I reading too much into what's happening? But as I looked into it further, as I see more reports, this textbook happened to, at the time, my 9-year-old daughter at the beach. And so a group of guys, and immediately my alarm bell started going off, because there was 4 men that approached on the beach, and they were fully clothed in running shoes. They didn't have towels, they didn't have sandals on. Like, they were obviously sticking out like a sore thumb at the beach, where you're generally in your bathing suits and ready to, head into the water. So they obviously were not dressed appropriately for the beach right off the bat. And my husband was probably about 50 feet away throwing around a football with our sons. And I had my, at the time, 9-year-old, and she was digging in the sand, building sandcastles. And then I also had my toddler who, I was obviously keeping a close eye on both of them. And so I saw this group of men come onto the beach, and immediately I'm watching because they stick out like a sore thumb. So I'm like, this is really weird. What's going on here? So they sit down, and again, they don't have towels or anything. So they're just sitting in the sand, fully clothed, about, I would say, probably 20 feet away from us. So I'm keeping an eye on my daughter, my other toddler, who's kind of closer to the water's edge. And then I'm out of the corner of my eye, keeping an eye on my other kids playing football with my husband. And these guys are snickering they're jeering, they're staring. The staring was so unsettling because it was relentless. They did not let up the staring. So I'm staring them back. And generally speaking, when you stare people down, they become uncomfortable, they move away, you know, there would be some sort of response. Their response to my staring them down was to continue laughing, sneering, jeering, and then they get a phone out and they start photographing or perhaps videoing. And at that point, my daughter kind of noticed that I was acting a little bit unusual, and she's like, "Why are you staring at that group of men?" And I said, "Because they're staring at us." And when people stare at you in public, and if they're making you feel uncomfortable, then you stare right back at them. And usually they would feel similarly uncomfortable. But these guys were not. And so this went on probably for about 5 minutes or so. And again, I'm keeping an eye on my toddler as well. So I couldn't just leave him and go approach them, but my mama bear was firing. And so finally I said to my daughter, "Go get dad, ask him just to come back over here. And this is really making me feel unsettled and creepy, and I'm not comfortable anymore." And as soon as my husband walked over and I pointed them out and he looked over, they got up and scurried off. And like it was almost instant that they picked up and left the beach completely. And so we both stared them down as they left the beach. And then as we were leaving, I was just kind of keeping an eye out to see, you know, where they had went to, or if we could find them again or warn other parents perhaps. But we didn't see them again. So this is happening everywhere. And it happened to me. And it is extremely creepy. It is very unsettling. And now seeing more and more reports of this, I regret not approaching them or calling it out more kind of vigorously. But you know, when you're wrangling a few kids at a beach, it can be hard, and you kind of want to be careful how you approach or confront those situations. But I think that absolutely we need to call this out, warn others every single time, because this is not okay, what is happening.
And you know, like the person who actually organized like the citizen movement was organized by the far left. And they arrived there, and when I questioned them about, you know, the problem of culture and immigration that are not being adequately integrated in the society because we receive too much, they say, "Oh no, it's not a problem of race, it's not a problem of culture, it's a problem of patriarchy." And I was like, no, it's not a problem of patriarchy. And the thing is, it was the only one with that line of thinking. Like the other people who actually arrived afterwards, they actually agree with my question about it. And you see, I saw afterwards on Reddit that they say that we came with our racist agenda, and that same the media, the mainstream media, didn't report at all that it was actually a problem of mass immigration, not well integrated, that they feel that they can do the same behavior that at home. For a woman that I've been traveling for 3 months and a half in India and other country in South Asia, myself, I was victim of sexually attacked, like touching everywhere. I've been stared at, I've been followed, I've been harassed. And I had to also bring the security to stop a man to enter to my hostel at one point. So if we are continuing to bring people in that are not integrated, who feel that they can do whatever they want without any repercussion, this problem is going to be worse. And I'm so sorry for what happened to you and your daughter. And I hope your daughter, I didn't actually notice that. And I hope that she's not traumatized by it.
Oh, she did. She fully noticed. And as soon as she noticed and we started feeling comfortable, that's when I said, you know, go get dad, because I need another adult so I can keep an eye on the toddler and we can continue kind of like unabatedly playing in the sand. And I wasn't expecting them to get up and leave immediately. When they saw my husband come over, immediately their phones went away, they got up and they left. And I thought if one of us needs to go and confront these individuals, and I can't leave my toddler to go do that. So But they left. I mean, and it just shows the glaring disrespect and disregard for women when they're treated with such disdain and like objects, because as soon as a man came over, they got up and left. And I had been staring these guys down. Like, and I have a pretty good death stare. And I knew what they were doing, and they were completely unfazed and also seemed eerily provoked by it. Like they liked that I knew what they were doing, and I couldn't necessarily do anything about it. And so that was really disturbing and unsettling. And that's why I say we need to call this out every single time and warn others, because it's not in your imagination. You're not, you don't need to double think this. If you see somebody staring down your young child and potentially taking photos or videos of them, you call that out every single time. I just wanted to get to one quick Rumble rant, because I know we may have our guest joining in a few minutes. This was back when we were discussing about your reporting at the cathedral. And again, if you want to see that report, you can head to standwithalexa.com. Pisco, Field 10, PSCO 10 gives $5. These cops in front of the cathedral are a disgrace. If this were 1940 and France, they would have been supporters of Pétain and the Vichy government. Yeah, it's the lack of historical reference or context that people seem to have these days. It's astounding to me. Like, people, you know, the COVID response really shone a light on that. People are still cheering on, like, oh, you disregarded lockdown orders and gathering restrictions. Well, good. Shame on you for disregarding the government's edicts and public health diktats, because that's the law, and you should just unquestionably abide by it. People, I don't know what it is that separates one from the other, where someone can see through the nonsense and another person says, please govern me harder. You see it still playing out in the streets, and I don't know what psychologically that is that makes one person question and another person adhere. But let's maybe just throw to another quick story before our guest arrives. Or actually, I see that our guest is in the video. So we'll go to a quick ad break, get them set up, and then we'll come back and introduce for more.
Gun bans make great distractions.
Trudeau may be gone, but Carney has picked up his same rhetoric.
We will quickly, and I mean quickly, reinvigorate the buyback of assault-style firearms.
Hunters, collectors, competitors, and defenders of tradition are still being targeted, while criminals run wild under liberal policy. But we are fighting back by delaying and dismantling unjust legislation, by confronting policy at its source, like on the global stage at the United Nations, through our unmatched record of political lobbying and our Save Firearms program, actively saving firearms from government crushers in real time. And we're not done yet. Join us, Canada's National Firearms Association, in defense of freedom.
Do you agree with me? It is time to make Canada great again. And that is why we at Rebel News have teamed up with MCGA hats to introduce, well, the fashion sensation of 2025. Oh, and by the way, these beautiful hats, they are made in Canada. We don't rely on cheap imports coming over from China. So what are you waiting for, folks? Show your pride. This is the perfect thing for a patriot to wear, or maybe there's a patriot in your life that you would like to gift such a hat. Please go to mcgahats.ca. That's mcgahats.ca. Don't be shy about it. Wear this cap. Let everybody know you want to make Canada great again.
Alberta powers Canada, but Ottawa keeps limiting our potential. The Alberta Next panel wants your ideas to strengthen our sovereignty within a united Canada. Help decide what's next for Alberta. Visit alberta.ca/next.
All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back. And joining us, we have Caryma Sa'd. She's a Toronto-based lawyer, political cartoonist, and I suppose, in a way, accidental journalist who's been covering the protest mania, as you put it, unfolding on the streets of Canada throughout the last few years. And it's really come to a head and shone a light on some of the aggressive tactics that have been deployed by those, who we would traditionally say are the left, or in certain cases, the far left. And recently, one of these individuals, Deanna Sharif, I think is the pronunciation of her last name. She has been engaged in extremely aggressive behavior and intimidation tactics throughout kind of the protest circuit in Ottawa, and she was just found guilty of causing a disturbance with what the mainstream media, and this one here comes from, this headline is from CBC News, the media says used a squeaky toy to cause this disturbance. Caryma, as someone who's been subjected to these tactics and the aggressive sound violence, I would even say, deployed by these individuals, how do you respond to the claim that this was just merely a squeaky toy?
It's technically correct. Her instrument of choice that day was a squeaky toy. What is important for audience or readers to understand that they wouldn't necessarily glean from that headline is at the time of this incident, Dina was already on bail for other serious charges related to protest behavior, including the alleged use of a sound weapon. And that one would have been an electronic sound weapon. So one of her bail conditions was specifically not to use for the sole purpose of emitting or projecting sound, that kind of an instrument. And so this trial centered on, well, was a squeaky toy an instrument contemplated by those bail conditions? And separate apart from just squeaking a toy, there is 22 minutes or so of footage that comes from her own live stream that depicts the events that unfolded on the day in question, while again she was already on bail. And so causing a disturbance partly related to the squeaky toy, but also had to do with very aggressive, intimidating language, following, getting in people's faces, that goes beyond just this little dog toy.
Because she actually used that electronic noise weapon. And I can say that it is really painful, and it can actually make someone deaf. Just by the sound, it's really powerful. It's not something like really light to use, and especially in front of his own children.
Not just in front of her child, but she's also used her child to use that device. And that's been against adult strangers, against police and bylaw. And we haven't seen any enforcement. Her initial set of charges came about in part, I believe, because some of the alleged victims were a police officer and a politician. But the same behavior that was observed or alleged on that day has been documented countless times prior to that. And of course, there was a brief period between initially being in jail on that first set of charges and then released on a bail review and then put back in jail for now we can say violating those bail conditions, where there was still ongoing questionable behavior. So we really do see that law enforcement on the ground can be selective about what they consider to be problematic behavior at protests. And it leads to an uneven, unfair enforcement. It puts people at risk. In this particular case, it was heard before a judge. The evidence was presented, and he came to the conclusion that she was guilty on 2 of the 3 charges.
Yeah, here it says also in this article, in April of 2024, she was arrested, charged with 8 offenses, including obstruct police, 2 counts of assault with a weapon, possession of a weapon, dangerous to the public, intimidation, and 2 counts of hate-motivated harassment. Do you have an update, or do you know of any of the outcomes? Is that still before the courts?
Yes, that is set to be heard in January of 2026. The Crown is proceeding by indictment on those charges. So that is, the most serious way in which a charge can be dealt with. There was at one point indication that it would be a trial by jury. She's changed counsel since then, so I don't know if that will still be the case or if they've reelected. But that's the meat and potatoes of the charges she's facing. This most recent trial dealt with the breach and disturbance while she was out on bail.
Yeah, and I think just to give the viewers a little bit more context, I see that there's there is no shortage of clips of Dina acting this way in the public space and being aggressive. I think I'll pick this one from the X handle Mitch, whose video depicts Dina using a squeaky toy to disrupt a CBC interview, and then, of course, ignoring an officer when she's asked to stop. Let's just show a quick peek at the kind of tactics deployed by Dina.
And how do you spell it? I just want to have the name of the organization. Sorry, my English is not.
All eyes are on you, Carl.
So, what's the name? You
Not so tough anymore now that the cameras are on you, hey, Carl? Hey. Oh, what? You sick of me yet, Carl? You fucking sick of me yet? Carl?
Okay, I think that's enough. I'm sick of it already, and I'm not even there in person.
And that was the incident in question. So this is what the trial was about. And that was one snippet of the 22 minutes of just total belligerent, ungovernable behavior where cops, in my view, did try several times to de-escalate, to get her out of there without laying charges, and faced a resistance in the colloquial sense.
As someone who obviously is trained and practices law and has been on the ground reporting on these subjects, and says yourself, you can see the 2-tier policing that happens on the streets. Does this recent report of the guilty of Dina being found guilty, does that restore any confidence that you have that maybe the tides are turning, or that gap of 2-tier policing is starting to close?
Well, so there are different kind of phases of enforcement, right? There's police on the ground, and then there's what happens in a prosecution, and then ultimately in a courtroom. And so human error means that things can go wrong at any one or all of those phases. I don't know that this will have a direct impact on what police choose to do on the ground. One can hope that it sends a signal that this type of behavior goes far beyond the parameters of simply voicing dissent or expressing oneself and into the realm of criminal conduct. But what I will say here is that there was a judge who sat through the evidence, parsed through it, and then came to a conclusion that, in my view, is quite very sensible, and reflects the evidence that was put before him.
Has this kind of treatment deterred you at all from continuing to head out into the streets and cover these kinds of cultural and political protests?
I certainly, that's the intent. I don't see any way around that. I'll echo what Alexa said earlier, that some of those noise devices are physically painful, and can cause permanent damage, and aren't treated with the seriousness, or haven't been up till this point, that is deserved. Knowing that the intention is to try and intimidate me and others from covering public events in public spaces, I'm perhaps a stubborn person, and so, you know, it hasn't deterred me in the way that perhaps they would expect. I have had to modify certain things, and, you know, protective earwear, for example, things like that, that shouldn't be necessary. We're not in a war zone. It ought to be possible just to do one's job. And, you know, in the face of people not wanting me to do my job, that makes me all the more committed to getting that work done.
And by the way, do you
Yeah.
think if she's found guilty and she will actually have like a harsh sentence, or I don't know what will happen, but do you think that will deter other far left activists to maybe not engage in the same kind of behavior, or do you think it would not change anything?
Deterrence is one of the goals of sentencing, so one would hope that it does. From some of the comments I've read from people who are aligned with Dina, they seem to be considering her kind of a martyr for the cause, and, you know, that she was unjustly prosecuted, and this was all unfair, and it's state suppression or repression, which I don't think is really a fair or accurate characterization. But that's one way in which this could not have the intended effect. But for anyone who wants to avoid a criminal record and all of the complications that that brings, right, as far as travel or family law issues, or, you know, a whole host of employment, hopefully they see this and don't want to emulate these behaviors and, you know, protests that don't involve causing physical or emotional harm to others. And so that's the more constructive way to go about it. And this is consequences. This is real consequences. Is it going to have a deterring effect on Dina herself? That's remains to be seen as well.
Because I'm actually concerned is about the child, and I'm pretty surprised that the youth protection didn't act and do something about it, because the child is being exposed to violence and to this kind of really extremist behavior and extremist ideology that is behind all this.
I can't speak to that. I know that when there is an arrest made, and certainly in this latest case, it happened in front of the daughter. So I believe, just as a matter of course, certain agencies would be involved or brought into that conversation. You know, I don't know any custody. I can't speak to it. But I agree with the overall or general sentiment that, you know, it's disturbing to see a parent put their child in these sorts of volatile, sometimes violent landscapes, and yeah, to equip the child with that could bring support on others. You know, does this consist in a meaningful way? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really, when you mentioned physical and emotional harm of others, that's where my mind immediately went to. What about the child that's being subjected to this kind of behavior? And I also wanted to throw to one of your ex posts, Caryma. This is from August of last year, where Dina says, "Don't worry about my daughter," in response to Ezra asking just that very same question. We can just throw to this quick clip.
I feel bad for your daughter.
Oh, don't worry about my daughter. I feel bad for everybody that's in your life. You are a Zionist. Oh, the Zionists are rapists. Oh, the Zionists are the terrorists. Oh, the Zionists are rapists. Oh, the Zionists are the terrorists.
And protest circuit.
I would say that Dina is not alone in the tactics employed. She's maybe an extreme example, but there are many others out there who follow similar tactics or patterns of behavior, and who justify this amongst themselves through sort of convoluted logic, I would say. And I would connect this to groups like the Canadian Anti-Hate Network that put targets on certain groups of individuals, almost as though it would then be appropriate to take this kind of action. And even if the Anti-Hate Network falls short of giving those explicit directives from its own official channels, some of the anonymous accounts that orbit this group, and certainly the people who support its messaging, do seem to draw that conclusion. And so the extent to which our taxpayer dollars are in fact propelling or subsidizing this type of really antisocial behavior that only leads to more polarization, that is a cause for concern for all Canadians.
And
yeah, appreciate.
And
Sorry,
just for
Alexa.
finishing, for the people who don't know you, where they can follow your work.
Yeah, so my name's Caryma Sa'd. I am primarily on Twitter at the handle Caryma Rules, CarymaRules. But if you Google Sa'd Lawyer Toronto, you'll find me.
Great.
Thanks so much, Caryma, and stay safe out there.
Yeah.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care.
All right, let's hit a quick ad break, and then we will come back for a couple more headlines.
Oh, hi, it's Ezra Levant here in Toronto with an important message because we need your help. Independent journalism in Canada is under attack. Government censors, big tech deplatformers, and the dying legacy media are all working together to maintain exclusive control on the information you receive. They don't want you to hear other voices like ours, and they really don't want you to be informed and to think for yourself. That's why the work we do here at Rebel News is so important. Our on-the-ground reporting, independent news shows, and special content you won't find anywhere else. It's all designed to give you trustworthy information and alternative viewpoints so you can decide for yourself. We don't get government money, and we are not owned by some big global conglomerate. We're funded by people just like you, so please support independent journalism and help us continue our work by subscribing and becoming a Rebel News Plus member today, right here on the page. Go to rebelnewsplus.com. Members get instant access to all of our shows, invitations to exclusive events, and access to our premium content like live event footage and documentaries you won't see anywhere else. Only Rebel News Plus members can join the conversation by participating in the comments section of our new website. That way you can have your say too. More than anything, though, you'll be able to take pride in supporting real, honest journalism, and you'll help our talented team continue to do the work to push back on the establishment. We really can use your help. We need it, in fact. So thank you, and enjoy Rebel News Plus.
Now, on that same vein, Rebel News, thanks to your support and the generosity of our donors, has turned 10 years old this year. I think the official birthday was actually back in February, but there's been so much happening with a snap election, the disaster that is our Prime Minister, formerly Justin Trudeau and now Mark Carney, that we just haven't had a chance to properly celebrate. And so we've just launched our 10th birthday bash. You can find out more about that at happybirthdayrebel.com. It will be taking place September 18th, so just a few months, fashionably late, in Calgary. And there will be live music, cocktails, hors d'oeuvres, a meet and greet, and of course, photos and mingling with the rebels themselves. So it will take place at 6 p.m. at the Carriage House Hotel and Conference Center in Calgary. And you can expect a lively, event-filled evening with Rebel News journalists and our crew, both past and present. As I mentioned, there will be live music, entertainment, cocktails, hors d'oeuvres, meet and greets, and photo ops so that you never forget the night. We'll be celebrating free speech, independent press, and our community, all of you that made this birthday milestone possible. So the general admission ticket includes free parking, live music, the hors d'oeuvres, the photos. And then, of course, you can also get for a limited time, and I think that they will go quickly. So head over to Rebel News happybirthdayrebel.com to get your tickets, because the VIP one features everything that the general admission gets you, plus also an exclusive dinner with the Rebel journalists and our team before the party. So that starts at 5 p.m. and space is limited. So you can buy all of your tickets, everything there at at happybirthdayrebel.com. Again, that's September the 18th in Calgary. So you don't want to miss that one. And I love the graphic where everybody just has a photoshopped little birthday cap on them. Those are my favorite ones that you can tell that they're just like blatantly photoshopped. They're so cheesy that they're fun and funny, and I love that one. We also have a Canada Strong and Free conference that's coming up similarly in Calgary the week prior. So what is the topic around their conference this year is, what is the West's place in Canada? You don't want to miss this year's Canada Strong and Free networking conference. It's happening, as I mentioned, the weekend prior in Calgary on September 5th and 6th. Speakers will include Tristan Hopper, Lord Conrad Black, Premier Danielle Smith, and Preston Manning. There are early bird rates available until August the 4th, and you can reserve your tickets at canadastrongandfree.network. And that's again, Calgary, September 5th and 6th. So you can check all of that out, Canada Strong and Free Network, canadastrongandfree.network.
And by the way, I've been to many of those conferences, and it's actually really awesome. A good way to network with other people, to speak with people that you don't have the chance to engage with, make connection. And it's actually really well made. There is a lot of panel. People are discussing about lots of different topics. Really interesting. You learn a lot. So I encourage you to go over there and have a look.
And we have a Rumble rant to get to. And I realized about, 3/4 of the way through the show that I completely forgot to tell everybody how they could tune in and support us. So I'm sorry. That's normally Sheila's MO. She's the host that is normally here all throughout the week. So of course we're on YouTube, Rumble, and X. And so you can give us what's called a Rumble rant, or on YouTube, a super chat, or if you're joining us after the live has already concluded, a super thanks. And so through a $5 or more, if you feel so pleased, donation, we will read your comment, tip live on air, and provide some commentary back. And it's a great way for you to support our work, keep our journalism afloat. And so we can hopefully also celebrate Rebel's 20th birthday in another 10 years. But this one comes from Rumble. It's from Clajin81, gives $5. And it's in response to the topic that we hit before Caryma came on, which was foreigners being inappropriate at pools, beaches, public spaces, and staring, jeering, and taking photographs and or videos of women and young girls in things like their bathing suits. So I shared a story where we had that happen to us on the beach. And this Clajin says that the best way is, and this was in response to me saying, like, I was pointing them out and staring them down, but I had my toddler also trying to wrangle some kids, didn't want to be super confrontational, especially with my kids in tow. So they say the best way is to loudly warn your children about dangerous predators in hearing distance of the offenders and as many people as possible. So I actually was doing this. So when my daughter recognized that I was staring at those other people, she had said, "Why are you staring at them?" And I said, "Because they're staring at us." And I made sure I was saying all of this really loudly. And I told her, if someone is staring at you in public or they're making you feel uncomfortable in public, you do whatever you can to make them feel equally as uncomfortable back. And I was saying all of these things. I mean, they were about 20 feet away, so I don't know if they could hear me. There weren't a lot of people at the beach. It was in the evening, so it wasn't like a packed house down there, which it normally is throughout the day. So I don't know if anyone necessarily was in earshot, but I was certainly not being timid. Like that is not who I am as a person. I am very much a a cordial, polite individual. But when something is unjust or disturbing or deserves to be called out, I do not hesitate to do that. So I was very much like puffing out my chest. If I was a predatory bird, I would have been fluffing up my feathers. I was making it very clear that I could see what they were doing, that I was not okay with what they were doing, and it was not deterring them at all, which is what made me feel increasingly disturbed and uncomfortable, because normally out in a public space, you're staring someone down, they're going to say like, what is your problem? Or what's going on here? Or, they'll leave or turn the other way. That was not happening here. These guys seemed to be emboldened by the fact that I knew what they were doing and was staring them down. So that is definitely when I started to get increasingly concerned and called and flagged my husband over. So yeah, absolutely, I agree. Loudly, get your backup, absolutely, out in public, and keep your head on a swivel. Like we come from a high trust society, and I was raised, we didn't have to worry about these kinds of things out in public, and now we do. And we also have to teach our children and warn them to be aware of their surroundings and to keep their head on a swivel. And so that's sad, but it's also a really important life lesson. And so we definitely had a more robust conversation thereafter with the kids about those sorts of things and what to keep your eye out for when you're out in public. And yeah, that normal people would become unsettled or uncomfortable if you were staring them down the way that I was staring these guys down, and they were not deterred at all. So that being said, we're about a minute left. And was there anything else in the headlines, Alexa, that you wanted to chat about or touch on before we wrap this up?
I would say I really like Andrew Layton Bill C-218, but also I liked about what is going on at our border. So I let you judge what you want to address.
Well, I also think that we hit quickly in the opening that Trump was backing female sports and trying to preserve female sports. So let's maybe just get to that one, since we did mention it in the beginning. This comes from CTV News. The Trump administration has decided to sue California over transgender athlete policies. And so he sued the Department of Education yesterday, on Wednesday, for allowing transgender girls to compete on girls' sports team. And in court, he will be alleging that the policy violates federal law. And so this lawsuit was filed, obviously, by the U.S. the Justice Department. It says that these policies violate I think it's Title 6. I'm terrible with Roman numerals. That's the
I think it's Title 9.
Thank you. Yes, I had my 9 and 6 reversed. Title 9, that's the federal law that bans discrimination in education based on sex. And of course, that was one of the earliest things that Trump did when he regained office in January. They say that California's rules are not only illegal and unfair, but also demeaning, signaling to girls that their opportunities and achievements are secondary to accommodating boys. I mean, and I think that really nails it. That's the heart of having sex segregated sports, is that males have an innate biological advantage against female athletes because of biological differences like bone density. And so we have these rules and these clearly defined, segregated teams for a reason. And allowing men into women's sports and to beat them out at, you know, things like their speed or the top whatever, that is going to mark a what's the word that I'm looking for? A new record that a girl or a woman will never be able to properly and appropriately challenge, because we just don't have that strength to ever meet that threshold again. And so you hear all the time of these men making new world records or records for women's swimming or jumping or weightlifting. And those are categories now that a woman, a biological woman, will never surpass, despite training, you know, her entire life or relentlessly. And it's so unjust and it's so unfair. And it's actually refreshing to me to see a leader actually lead on this file for once, rather than cower and kowtow out of fear of being called, you know, like a transphobe or a bigot. Because women that I speak to who are being beat out in these categories, they want fairness to be restored, and they don't want their sport taken over by men pretending to be women.
And you're totally right, because it would just kill the women's sport. No woman would want to practice any sport anymore. They would just say, how can I reach and beat the record? It's impossible. So why I'm doing this? Why I will spend all my money, my education to go further in something that I'm going to fail anyway?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And hopefully we'll start to see some of these changes happen closer to home here in Canada. And I mean, I think there's a very realistic and logical way to get around all this. Make its own category. If you want to be transgender, you want to identify as whatever, you have your own category. Keep women's sports women, keep men's sports men. And if you want to have your own transgendered category where you compete in and amongst yourselves, and I don't know what kind of criteria, like, to me, it would be a complete clown show. But regardless, you can have your own category, whatever you want to identify as, have at it. But let's keep these sports as they should be, defined by biology, and that's male and female.
Exactly.
All right. Moving on. Our last topic is our daily dose of cringe. And we have this 46-second clip from our new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, where he wants to spend less to invest more. Let's have a look at this.
I have a simple rule. Spend less, invest more. Let's say you buy a home. The down payment and the mortgage cost a lot up front, but your home builds value over time. That's an investment. Now you still have other bills like heat and electricity. You need them, but they don't make you better off in the long run. Those are operational expenses. I will balance our operational budget in 3 years. We'll spend what we need to with the money we already have. And we'll do things that encourage the big investments that create jobs and grow our economy, like building millions of homes, making Canada a clean energy superpower, and creating new trade routes so we're not dependent on the United States. Spend less, invest more.
I'm actually a little bit like, there's something I don't understand, because it's not him that is actually spending more than Trudeau currently.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was just going to say. Where's the budget? Mark Carney, we don't have a budget. Like, his government has not tabled a budget. And instead of saying, you know what, Parliament's been prorogued for and not even sitting for the vast majority of the last year-ish, 6 months for sure. So we're going to delay our summer recess so that we can table Canadians a budget, because in these tumultuous times, these economic times, Canadians deserve to have a budget. Instead of doing that, Mark Carney was like, yeah, I think we're going to get to it in the fall. So stay tuned, but I'm going to head on to vacation now. So, see ya. And then, he says things like, we're going to spend less so we can invest more. And again, I just keep coming back to, where is the budget? And I loved that Chris Stacy pointed out in the comments, we're running a $92 billion deficit, which is higher than the Trudeau government projected, by the way. How is that spending less? Yeah, I mean, the proof is quite literally in the pudding. So we're not actually spending any less. We're spending record amounts on interest only on that deficit. So none of this makes sense. We're not spending any less. We're spending way more on interest. We don't have a budget. The budget hasn't been balanced in since Trudeau's reign of terror, and arguably for the last, I think it was 12-ish years. You'd have to source back to the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, which follows all of that so closely. But he also says in there, the sneaky little bit at the end, create new trade routes so we are less dependent on the US. That is how we would spend less and make more, is to further strengthen those trade routes with the US. They are quite literally our bordering neighbor. How is anything going to be less expensive than just strengthening the trade routes that we already have with our southern border, strongest ally historically, and biggest trade partner? We're undoubtedly going to need to spend more if we're creating new trade routes abroad with Europe, who Carney is attempting to align Canada more with, the European Union, than he is to the United States. So this is full of Orwellian doublespeak. And I see in the comments that a lot of people are seeing through it. So I love to see that, but I don't know how much it's going to actually change anything with this government.
I think economically, it's not going to go well. But we all know, we all see it. It's all coming. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, well, everyone was like, elbows up, Canada. We have a former central banker and he's going to get us out of this mess. Yay, Carney. And this is the additional mess that he is creating. So once again, I think that Canadians will not wake up and start to pay attention until it hits them where it really hurts, which is their pocketbooks. And that is increasingly happening. Many Canadians were hoping, or misled rather, by our compromised mainstream media, that Carney would be the guy that would turn that ship around. And now they're seeing that that isn't actually coming to fruition. So elbows are really down these days. And with that, our stream concludes. So thanks everybody for joining us today. I think it will be Sheila back again tomorrow, same time and place, 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern for Rebel Roundup, our daily live stream. Thank you to everybody behind the scenes who make sure that the links and the stream runs seamlessly and smoothly. Thanks, Alexa, for hopping on today so Sheila could tend to some business. And for everyone out there who's watching this stream, thank you for your support. Who's watching our governments like Mark Carney with his doublespeak, please just hang on to your critical thinking caps, because we increasingly are going to need them. Stay tuned for more next time.
Yeah.